Hello, team. This is episode 2. I have ever so wittily named this. We used to have villages and now we have group chats. Oh, sorry, just kicked my laptop there. And I think that is. Last week we talked about the Great Scattering and we talked about the sort of the trigger point of adulthood and the trigger point of this sort of identity crisis, this quarter life crisis, if you will, that there's a certain point at which everyone you've grown up with just pings all over the country, all over the world. And emotionally, people live very different lives. People just they figure out who they are and they figure out what matters to them. And that's so exciting. But that's also, it leaves you quite isolated as you start out your life. But I want to repeat it back today, if you'll allow, and look at how we used to live. And I'm not talking, well, I suppose I am, historically how we used to live. I don't know, like I've got a picture in my head of Downton Abbey and like the village, when they all go down to the village and like they know everyone, and like the butcher and the fishmonger and the greengrocer, like they know everyone. And that's what we're talking about today. So the village, not in the way that I refer to myself as being from the village, but the village used to be your network of people, the people you were surrounded by and the people that you interacted with. Now, these people were geographically close to you, and they were your extended family, the people at your church, the people that worked in the local shops, the people that went to the community hall, people that went to the parish meetings. That was your village. The key takeaway from this is that these are proximity-based relationships. So they are people that you interact with because you are close. You are within a shared space. And they are repeated low stakes interactions that turn into relationships. A support network that doesn't require a crisis to be activated. So, like popping to the shop to get your neighbour a pint of milk. The last time my neighbour popped round, her house was flooding. Just to put that into context. We don't live in villages the same way we used to. We moved into this house in 2022. And I think the amount of times I've spoken to my neighbours, I can probably count on one hand. Everyone keeps themselves to themselves very much. I don't know if it's a British thing, but we always say hello on the dog walks, when you see them on the drive, it's always, oh, hello, you're right. But I couldn't ask them to watch the dog. I couldn't ask them to pop to the shop to get a pint of milk for me. We just don't have that relationship. We don't see each other enough to be able to rely on each other and support each other in that way. All I can see is like Downton Abbey. I bet they would pop to the shop for each other. So, to the psychology, to the research, because where would we be without it? Dunbar's number. Humans evolved to live in groups of 150 people. That is a number of stable social relationships you can realistically maintain. People that you know well enough to have a proper conversation with, and people that you'd feel comfortable asking for help. Now, these aren't friends. It's important to distinguish the two there. These are not your friends. These are not people that you would trust your deepest, darkest secrets with, your life goals, but they're people that you could have easy interactions with, light touch conversation, and that you could reach out to. I don't know about you. I don't know actually. I don't think I have 150 people within my life. I don't know. Maybe I should count, but then I'd bore you all with sitting here and counting, so I won't bother doing that, don't worry. But I'm genuinely lucky if I see the same 10 people regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean weekly. And the other thing is that these relationships have become much more transactional now. So work colleagues, housemates, the relationship is very different. You're working there's always a stake to the interaction, especially with work or like house share. I feel it's not the light touch casual conversation that you would have with members of your village, quote unquote. And your friendships are scheduled. I spoke about this last week. a lot of especially my friends that live, further afield now, our friendships are scheduled into calendars. We have to make a real concerted effort to let each other know when we're around and when we're free so that we can get together. We have a monthly thing put in the calendar for us to have online chats, and half the time we end up missing those anyway because someone is busy or is double booked or something. What we've lost is the organic, unplanned, just being around each other. That mundane, boring interaction. We've also lost the feeling of being part of something, context for where you fit, and the feeling of belonging. Again, to say these aren't friendships, you're not going to live within the village, you'll have friends, but not all the villagers will be friendships. And I know that's a topic that's been quite hotly debated online at the minute, is that everyone wants a village, but no one wants to be a villager. And you do have to go out of your way, you have to make yourself slightly uncomfortable, and you have to inconvenience yourself for other people in order for them to want to inconvenience themselves for you. It's just, again, it's more transactional now than it ever was. We're far more self-serving now, I'd argue, than we have been before. But that's the context of how we used to live and how a village, again, quote unquote, would work. Your support network that was around, really. Now, the post-COVID context of that is that obviously everything changed. Everything we knew, everything, and the way we'd built our lives, everything changed. I personally went from a house share, I went from student accommodation on the outskirts of London to my childhood bedroom overnight, now with my boyfriend in tow. Literally overnight, we had an email go out to say, come home, go home now, we'll refund you your rent. My dad came and got me in the middle of the night. That was it. I didn't go back until after I'd graduated, a year late. But yeah, we adapted and we put everything online, and then we yo-yoed back and forth for a good few years while we figured our shit out. And when we eventually came out of lockdown or tiers or, whatever else we were experimenting with, nothing was the same. So many places didn't survive, which was such a shame. Small businesses closed, community centres shut down. People were hesitant to gather together again. We got so used to being, I'd argue, lazy, comfortable, and just not making the effort that the muscle that we used to flex for social interaction completely disappeared. Now, myself and my now husband, we worked in hospitality. We got to live through the joys of Eat Out to Help Out. Massive fuck you for everyone that enjoyed that, because it was, anyone that works in hospitality can attest, it was the single most stressful summer of my life, and certainly of my husband's life, being the chef and all. But hospitality was never the same. And I mean, this is divulging massively, but pubs are dying at the minute. And I mean, I've never been a massive person to go to a pub, but I can understand how, especially the local small village pubs, how huge they used to be, pillars of their community. People used to go there all the time. When I worked behind the bar, there'd be people that would just show up and just sit and drink and chat to people that came in and out all day. And we don't have that anymore. But that's a conversation about third spaces, which we'll be having probably next week. I remember the first big outing that I had post-COVID. I actually was lucky enough to work the Isle of Wight Festival as a photographer post-COVID. And I mean, I've never been particularly good with massive crowds of people. I find it quite overwhelming. But I do remember being so overwhelmed by the sheer amount of people that were all together. I think it was one of the first festivals that went ahead after COVID. And I mean, we'd only been able to socialise with up to 10 people, even the Christmas before. So I think it's an early festival, I think, or it could be a late one. I cannot remember now. But I remember being absolutely blown away by the sheer density of people and of crowds. It was wild. I had so much fun. It was such a good job. But I do remember being really the muscle and the small talk and the how to be around people for an extended period of time had really gone. I really struggled to to be on, if that makes sense. And that might be a separate issue, which we can get into later. But it was really, really jarring to have gone from years inside and years of like, and even like work related stuff, like, you know, when we were on set for our final films during uni, we had to do all of that online. We had to shoot our final films online. It's just mad. And then to go from that back to like doors wide open, world wide open, like nothing had happened, I remember it was really, really jarring. It felt, especially like the first lockdown, was an absolute fever dream. But another thing to then say is my first grown-up job, you know, quote, quote, from uni, I was a digital marketer, which is hilarious in itself because who the fuck hired me for that? But I was absolutely miserable. I was absolutely miserable. I was the entire marketing department for a small coffee chain. I'd done a degree in film and television production. This guy saw my CV and was like, digital marketing, say less, off you go. And I worked exclusively from home, remotely, exclusively from home, which was miserable doesn't even begin to cut it. I had no support. I couldn't ask anyone anything. I couldn't reach out to anyone. It was just, I've never known isolation like it. I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing, what was going on. And then I think that's a really interesting conversation because I know so many people are being forced back into the office at the minute and they're hating it. And as she says, you know, someone that works from home, that runs her own business, I'm desperate to go into an office, to go and co-work with people, to go and do that, because young people, especially young people in their careers, working from home doesn't serve us. And I know that's quite a controversial opinion. And I know that that is the uncomfortable, potentially more expensive, jarring option. But I stick to my guns here and I say I do think we need to go back into the office. We need to be building those connections back up. I do think this is a separate issue than our villages. Although your colleagues are your villages, they are potentially low stakes interaction, but it's also, I think we conflict here the idea of a network and the idea of a village. So maybe I'm digressing completely, but I do think we need villages and networks back. That's interesting. I don't know whether we lost villages because of COVID. I don't know if we lost villages because of COVID or if villages was just starting to die out and whether it was the networks that really... No, what do you think? You tell me what you think. I don't know. She said, I did warn you that I was in no way qualified to have these conversations, and it's unfortunate because I'm having this conversation with myself, so you guys can't even interject. But well. But essentially, we replaced physical community, physical villages with digital ones. We replaced them with Zoom calls, group chats, Reddit threads, social media in general. And really interesting parasocial relationships with people that we've never met. So like following influencers, celebrities, that kind of thing. And again, whilst this isn't a bad thing, none of it is. We put it all in place when we went into survival mode. We put it all in as coping mechanisms to survive. And it is no longer serving us, I would argue. We're losing body language, tone of voice, the energy of being in the same physical space, being able to sit in comfortable silence with people that you don't really know, and spontaneity. I read a really good quote, I can't remember when, again, probably on social media, that fun has to happen spontaneously. You can't organise fun. You can organise parameters for fun, but you can't organise fun. Fun only comes from spontaneous stuff, which I really like. And the other thing that we really need to think about is the physical connection for human beings literally aids our physical and mental health. We could not survive without it. There's that thing, isn't there? It's like 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. I think it's like 3 years and you go crazy. How long can you survive without human interaction? There is no one answer because it depends on the individual. Some could go very, very long. Some could go a very, very long time, while others could start seeing cracks within weeks. Wow. Loneliness can lead to a long-term fight or flight stress signaling, which negatively impacts your immune functioning. Simply put, people who feel lonely have less immunity and more inflammation than people who don't. Wow. So this is what I'm saying. And it's on a much, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's on a much, much smaller level than this, because we are still interacting with people. You know, everyone that I see and I know is still interacting with people, but just on a much, much smaller scale. They go into the office maybe once, twice a week, but they live with people. So they see people every day. I wouldn't particularly say they're friendly or they're their village, but they do see people. So I feel like, and again, this is, I think, since COVID potentially, that we're in this we're doing enough to cover the bare minimum and the bases so that we're okay, but no one's thriving. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And the other thing is that digital relationships require constant maintenance. You notice that? You have to consciously message someone back, ring someone back, call someone back, like their fucking Instagram story. You have to always be on and thinking of how you can reach out. It's not the same as having a conversation at all. It's not the same thing as having a phone call. Well, I don't even know if a phone call. But digital, yeah, I won't digress because I'll go down another rabbit hole. But digital relations do require constant maintenance. You have to always actively be doing something and reaching out, which is probably why we're all so fucking tired. But if we recap on really what we've lost when we're losing the village, you are losing that sense of belonging. That part of feeling like you're something bigger, that part of feeling like you belong in a community. You're missing out on being seen and being known. And also, I think awfully, we're missing out on the fact that you feel as though your presence matters, even in small ways. And I think that is a massive reason that there's such a mental health crisis in young people. People feel as though they don't matter and that their presence isn't missed, which it couldn't be further from the truth. But when you're in a dark place, that really does resonate with a lot of people. You miss that out on that sense of accountability as well, of people checking in and caring, not accountable in the sense of, have you done this? Why haven't you done that? But that built-in structure of people checking in and seeing how you are. We've lost, and this is again a really different separate conversation about the shift in the way, especially teenagers that lost so much of their life to COVID, how they interact socially and the social skills that they're missing. But we've completely lost this casual connection, this low stakes, unplanned interaction of bumping into someone at the shop or sitting next to someone in a pub and having a conversation for 2 hours about whatever you have in common and finding that common ground, running into the neighbour while walking a dog. These things can't happen online. You cannot have this type of relationship with someone because the parameters are so different, because you have to be, like I said, you have to be on, you have to be actively reaching out. You know, I mean, even myself, I can't imagine, you know, if I bump into someone I know in the shop, Christ, I can't get out of there fast enough sometimes. But I mean, God, I remember my mum when she used to bump into people in Tesco and she'd be stood there for like half an hour just yakking. And you, at like, you know, 8 or 9, we'd be like, come on, mum, you couldn't wait to get out of the shop. I think that's a massive difference between our generations. Again, let me know whether that's just me being, you know, slightly antisocial or whether that was something else that you experienced. And again, they don't happen, these little interactions don't happen because we're all so busy. I don't know, again, when that shifted, but being hyper busy and hyper scheduled. And, you know, again, when I go and see the girls in London, everyone is trying to get somewhere so fast. No one slows down anymore. I think there is potentially a shift to slowing down, always at this time of year, you know, in January, and slowing down in life, I guess, because I think people are so overstimulated and overwhelmed from it. We're missing connection that doesn't feel like work. We're missing connection that doesn't feel like like work is as simple. I don't feel like I need to elaborate on that. And we're missing shared culture and rituals where things that bond communities together. So church events, pub quizzes, village fates, whatever and however people showed up, people were given a reason to show up and be together and feel part of something. And I don't know if we have the same things anymore. Again, geographically, you think we have to travel for a lot of this now. We have to get in our cars, and then that's another reason, another barrier for us to not go, not do it, all of that. And it's really funny, at the time that I'm recording this, I've just got my mum into Traitors. Now, me and my husband love Traitors and have since it was on, but it's really, really funny that this feels like such a community thing at the minute. I was sat in a coffee shop the other day doing some work, and I was chatting to my friend about it. Oh my god, I won't spoil, even though this will be completely out of context by the time you guys listen to it. But talking about what happened on the Traitors last night, and I could hear that other people were having conversations about what happened on Traitors last night. So then we all had a conversation about what happened on Traitors last night. It's the same when me and my mum give blood. The little game we play at the end is whenever we go and have, like, you have your biscuit at the end after you've given blood. Our game is always that when we sit down, we have to get everyone around the table talking before we leave. Which has always just been something that we do because so many people, like, they just, and I think it's because me and mum go together, because I certainly would be sat on my phone or reading my Kindle by myself if I was on my own. But it always feels really nice to have that conversation with strangers, Maybe that's me being really naive, but I enjoy shooting shit with total strangers. But I think that is for me, I find it really interesting the way that what we've done. I think in this age, and we've not covered this, and we will, because I'm certainly a massive part of this hyper individualism. Everyone is off doing their own thing. They're off watching their own shows, following their own interests, creating their own bubble of content online. We have less and less and less in common with our peers and our people, and fewer shared reference points, which makes it harder to connect. We're all speaking slightly different languages, living in slightly different realities, and bridging that gap does take effort. And we're so tired and so busy that we don't connect, we don't show up, and we don't actively build the community that we all need, and then wonder why we're all so lonely and why no one will go out of their way for us. And why we won't go out of our way for anyone else. And I think it's really sad, to be honest with you. And I'm not sat here saying that I know how to get this back or any of that, because that's preachy and wanky, and that's not me at all. I'm just saying I can feel it. I can feel that we're living in it. And it wasn't until I started doing all this research, because I could feel that something was wrong in my stomach almost, that I unpacked all of this and I understood the social shift and the sociological shift and the move and why it's happened. And I think the main thing is, can we get it back? Because if we've gone through all this and we realise how detrimental it is, not only to our physical health, but our mental health and all of this, and I've made it sound so depressing, and it is a little bit depressing, unfortunately. And I don't know if we get it back. I don't know how to get it back. I don't know how, even within my own circle, to advocate for it and to bring so many of my relationships offline, because there isn't really another way to interact with some of my really dear friends, because they're not around. It's a 2.5 hour drive to be able to pop in for a coffee. So I really don't know. And that does sound really deflating now. I just leave it there. But I think the three main takeaways for me when I was looking into this is, we have to prioritize in-person time and in-person connection, and understanding why a Zoom call or a phone call isn't the same as grabbing a coffee with someone. I don't even know, because then I saw some of them that was like, show up and be a regular at somewhere. And even I was like, ugh, God, ick. Like, I'm not just going to show up at a coffee shop and sit down until I become a regular and people know me. That I can't think of anything worse. But realistically, I do fear that that may be how that community, like, because it would just be me, because no one else is going to do that either, because that's mental. But I do fear that that's the community aspect that we've lost. I wouldn't go to a coffee shop to just go and grab a coffee by myself unless I was meeting someone, unless I had work to do. Any of that, I don't know. I honestly don't know how we bring it back. But I do know, yeah, I always feel better after I've hung out with my friends face to face. It's never the same as talking to them in the group chat or even a phone call. I have to be next to them in order for my cup to be filled in quite the same way. And I think that's a very human thing. We need to be okay with imperfect connection, I think, as well, of that showing up at 80, 50, even 20% and just being like, this is the best I've got. And being okay with that and seeing each other through, I think. Again, I don't know if that sounds really wanky. And another one, I do feel we need to say yes more often. Because you guys are going to have to come with me if I'm also going to have to do it, because, saying yes to stuff when you don't want to do it, my God, it sucks, doesn't it? And I have to be quite careful with my energy, especially in the evenings, if I don't want to have like a crashed and burned by the weekend. But so saying yes, I do have to be strategic with. I cannot always say yes to spontaneous plans. I can't always say yes to everything, because I don't have the energy for it. But we do need each other, and I think that's something that we need to peel back again from that hyper individual state of I can do everything by myself and I don't need anyone. And that's absolutely something that I certainly feel was peddled to me in my youth. Was that, no one was coming for you, no one was going to help you, so you had to do it yourself. And whilst that may be slightly true, I say, and we'll have a much broader conversation on this, because I do think this is really interesting. At our core, in our hearts, in our soul, we are tribal creatures, we are tribal animals, and we need each other. We are meant to work together, we are meant to live together, we are meant to interact with each other. We need each other, we always have. I think that's the main takeaway from this, is to just understand. And again, I love talking about, I say this a lot, but caveman brain, and the difference between what you, again, higher self, who's that philosopher? Oh God, I don't know, but higher self, and what you should be doing versus what you need to do, and rationalizing the difference between your nature and your nurture, and what you are programmed to do and what you should do. They are different things, and I think that's part of human nature. But we need each other, we always have, and no amount of digital connection is going to change that. We are not I don't know if you guys are particularly spiritual. Again, we'll talk about this. I feel like I'm just plugging the rest of my conversations, but spiritualism is massively on the rise, and people are desperate to look for a higher power, believe in a higher power, because, God, I feel like everyone needs to believe in something, because if you just think that this is it, Christ, that's depressing. But we'll cover that when we get there. I've completely lost my train of thought. In our souls, that's where I was going with this. No amount of digital connection is going to fill that little bit of our soul that needs to be seen and known and loved by other humans. I think that's the main takeaway. So if I haven't depressed you all too much and given you too much to worry about, that was our episode on villages and why it's so important to live within a village or start to grow a village if you don't feel that you live in one at the minute, I think. So yeah, I will speak to you guys all very soon. Again, welcome. If you are new here, sorry, I feel like I've just word vommed at you for about half an hour, but this is the Quarter Life Crisis Club, and we look at all kinds of sociological things around identity and coming of age, because I think it's super, super interesting. But that's all from me this week, and I'll speak to you guys very soon.